Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around it is my review of the 1977 Blaxploitation comedy horror film, Petey Wheatstraw. Now before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I would like to give a special shout out to Shine for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you'd like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. The link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Petey Wheatstraw is something else. Like, this is one of those movies that I wouldn't call it a good film, but I still had fun watching it. Like, this is legitimately one of those movies that's in so bad it's good territory. Like, this is the kind of film you watch with a group of friends and you riff on it with some beers and some potato chips or whatever snack of your choice. It's definitely that kind of movie. There's a reason why Red Letter Media called it one of their best of the worst and did a whole video just reviewing the film, because it's insane, it's crazy, but it's also genuinely funny at times and witty, and it's definitely unique. There isn't another film like Petey Wheatstraw, for better or worse. It's directed by Cliff Roquemore, who also wrote the film. Cliff Roquemore directed a couple of Rudy Ray Moore's previous films, The Human Tornado, and yeah, he directed The Human Tornado actually before this. He directed Rude after this. So he only directed one other Rudy Ray Moore film before he directed Petey Wheatstraw. And the direction, I'm not going to say that it's going to win any awards. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's particularly amazing, but I don't think it's necessarily pathetic or outright bad either. For this kind of film, for a blaxploitation movie, for a low budget movie from 1977, this is honestly on par with a lot of the other films of this ilk at the time. It's adequate. It's good enough. There's a decent understanding of shot selection, decent understanding of framing. Like, it's not something that's going to blow you away, but it also isn't something that's so incompetent that it is a legitimate detriment to the overall film. So even though it's not what I would consider to be, a good movie, it is a film that has some at least competent, somewhat skilled direction, and it definitely helps when it comes to some of the more outlandish moments in the movie. And I can see why some people would say that it's not great direction, but I don't think it's outright poor either. So it's just one of those things where the direction kind of is just middle of the road, but considering the lower budget and considering the kind of film that this is, it could be a lot worse. I mean, for instance, something like Black Samurai to me had much worse direction than this movie, than Petey Wheatstraw. The script by Cliff Roquemore. This screenplay, this is a prime example of a writer that is trying to do, in my opinion, too much. But in a way, because he's trying to do so much, it just makes the film so much more interesting and makes it not your typical blaxploitation film. So it's trying to be a blaxploitation movie, but then it's also trying to be a comedy, and then it's also trying to be a horror film. So it's trying to be, in all honesty, three different genres all at once. And it's also trying to have a main plot and then like another subplot that's also connected along with everything else. And it's also trying to have satire of black culture, specifically things that films of the time felt that African Americans really liked or were into, like watermelons. And so you have like this really surprisingly witty social commentary, but then it's juxtaposed with Ray Moore and his whole shtick of just doing crowd work on audiences for his stand-up act and insulting people with essentially a string of fat jokes or just insults that you would hear on the Dirty Dozens skits on in Living Color. And you also have something involving the devil, and the devil wants Petey to marry his daughter. So now you have this whole thing going on with Petey and the devil. There's a magic scepter or cane that Petey comes across that the devil gives him that has all these special powers and abilities. It's one of those scripts that it's literally throwing everything at the wall and hoping that something will stick. And I think in a film that isn't as outrageous, that could be a serious problem. But because of the fact that this film is so outrageous and so over the top and so silly and so tonally inconsistent, it just seems to actually kind of fit, funnily enough, because it's such a bizarre movie. So it kind of fits that it has this bizarre script. And I like how unpredictable it is at times, because it's like a silly, dumb blaxploitation comedy for like the first 20 minutes, and then a kid dies, and now it's like really serious, and you're like, okay, wow, like the script really lingers on this kid's death. And then literally like the next scene, there's a funeral for the kid, and the whole like half the entire funeral crowd gets gunned down by these thugs, and you're just like, what the fuck? The what the hell? Like, what in the hell am I watching? And the devil first makes his appearance there, and then brings Petey back to life. Oh, and this whole WTF nature of this script, it's there from the beginning, because like the opening sequence is Petey doing his rhyming routine while he's in hell and talking about how he's the devil's son-in-law, and then it cuts to Petey's birth, and his mom had a belly the size of a beach ball, and when she gave birth to Petey, he was like fully grown, wearing a diaper. It's like I don't even know what in the hell this writer was smoking when he wrote this. There's no explanation whatsoever as to why the mom had a belly the size of a beach ball, why she gave birth to Petey and a watermelon at the same time, and why Petey is fully grown. I thought that would have some connection to him being the devil's son-in-law, but it actually has no connection whatsoever. And then you get a stand-up routine, and then you have these competing stand-up comics who don't like the fact that Petey Wheatstraw is going to be doing his act the same night as their big extravaganza, their big variety act, because they don't want any competition, because of the fact that they spent all this extra money that they borrowed from a sketchy white guy who's literally named Mr. White. So they don't want to screw up and not make the full profit, because they took this money from Mr. White. So they have to try to find a way to get Petey not to do his set. And that's like the first hour of the movie is just this whole back and forth between these two different stand-up comics, his rivals. So you got Petey going up against Leroy and Skillet. And Leroy and Skillet have these thugs on their payroll They hire them to, I think, send a message to Petey. But what happens is one of Petey's relatives winds up getting killed in a fight with a gun, and that's the little boy. He gets shot to death. Then you get the whole funeral scene. Then Petey's brought back to life by the devil. The devil then makes this deal with Petey Wheatstraw where he's like, "Hey, all right, I brought you back to life, but on one condition, you have to marry my daughter." And then he looks at a photo of the daughter and he's like, "Oh, hell no. Not marrying that ugly bitch." Like, there's just something about, it's about the script that is genuinely funny. Like, just the bluntness of it, especially when it comes to Petey and his lines of dialogue and his one-liners and his comedy act. Like, even his whole like stand-up routine was just him insulting the audience, but it was absolutely hilarious. Like, he had this whole thing where he made some pretty clever fat jokes at this one girl, this overweight girl, who was there in the audience. Then this one guy tries to speak up, and then he's all like, "Shut up! If you don't shut the fuck up, I'm gonna smack you in the face with this woman's titties." You're just like, "I'm gonna beat the shit out of you with this woman's titties." So there's just a lot of stuff like that it just, it's honestly just surprisingly blunt, but also at the same time really over the top. There's a whole exchange with this one guy who I guess is like friends with Petey, who makes this whole monologue about shitting, and like the way that he tells it is absolutely hilarious. And there's just so many moments like that throughout this movie. Like, even the montage when Petey has the magic staff, the devil's staff. Which, why the hell did the devil give him the staff anyway if it can defeat the devil? I don't understand why he even gave it to him. But he gives him the staff and he goes around the neighborhood and just answers all these wishes of people who are in the neighborhood. And some of them are like this one wife who's tired of her husband cheating on her. So she asks him to turn, I mean, a husband, this one wife, yeah, this one wife, she's tired of her husband cheating on her. So she asks Petey to turn her husband into a puppy dog. And he does it. There's this, he's like making money fall from the sky. He's changing this one guy's dilapidated car into a fancy one and giving him some fancy clothes. He's making a fat woman skinny. He's doing this whole thing where he takes, he doesn't even use the staff for this. He just goes over after he saved this kid from getting hit by a car. He then just starts combing the kid's hair, and the kid is like not having it. Like, I don't even think this is acting. He just started randomly combing this kid's hair, and this kid is like screaming and crying, and you're just like, what the hell? What in the fucking hell is going on here? And there's a whole sequence where Petey, he crashes Leroy and Skillet's routine and causes it to snow inside, and causes one woman's wig to fly off and causes her clothes to fly off, causes Leroy and Skillet both to insult Mr. White and his girlfriend, who are there in attendance. Basically just completely crashes the entire set. And that's how the whole like first main plot just abruptly ends. Like, it's the main plot for like the first hour of the movie. Petey was brought back to life. He's trying to get revenge for the death of this kid who's a relative of his, who was killed by these thugs who were hired by Leroy and Skillet. And he's using his cane to give him an advantage, and he's using the powers from the cane to take them out. Um, there's even one hilarious scene where the Kane tells him that there's a bomb in the bathroom, and he takes care of the bomb because Leroy and Skillert are trying to take him out that way. Um, Even like the scene where he finds the cane, he goes to a graveyard, and there's like this wino who this guy is a total character. And he's looking like Flavor Flav's granddad, grandpappy, and I know that joke's been used before, but come on, it's so perfect. It fits so well. Or, someone like Grandmaster Flash uh or Anton from In Living Color, Damon Wayans' homeless guy character. And there's this just random bit of just mean-spiritedness where the wino falls into this open grave and Petey Wheatstraw is trying to bury him alive. You're just like, what are we doing? What is this tone? And then, yeah, the first main plot ends with Petey Wheatstraw destroying the set of Leroy and Skillet, destroying their whole variety act. You never hear from Mr. White again after that point, or Leroy and Skillet until the end sequence. And now it's just a whole plot line about Petey Wheatstraw trying to find a way to weasel his way out of marrying the devil's daughter. And it's just this whole concept is just so off the wall. Like it makes no sense. Why the hell would the devil have such a hard time getting someone to marry his daughter? Why does the devil have a daughter? Also, why does the daughter have to be ugly? Like, it's the devil. He has all these powers and shit. Like, can he do anything? He could probably just make her like the most beautiful, gorgeous succubus known to man that no man could resist. But instead, like, she's just ugly and just a complete beast. And so Petey doesn't want to marry her. So he comes up with this elaborate plan where he's going to shoot up this wino on the side of the street with drugs. So then he's comatose, and then put a mask on him that will make him look like Petey. And then he'll tell the devil that he's going to be meditating while the ceremony is going on. And that's how he's going to get out of it. But it all blows up in his face super quickly because as soon as the wino gets picked up by the devil's concubines or minions, the wino wakes up and then rips the mask off and runs out of the car. So that whole thing didn't even feel like it led to anything substantial. And then you get these sequences where either the devil will send some of his minions, his demons, to try to rough up Petey Wheatstraw and his pals, complete with like people in like really bad devil makeup, with like really crappy looking devil horns that look like they made them out of paper mache, and capes that they bought at the local Halloween party store for like 50 cents, and leotards, multicolored leotards for some reason, and makeup that just makes their face look like it's a cheese pizza. You're just like, this is so bad. But this is also so fucking hilarious because of how bad it is. There's a whole scene where the devil sets up a bachelorette party for Petey Wheatstraw in some abandoned building with all these demonesses. All these scantily clad demonesses, complete with horns, who are taking their tops off, and he fucks them so hard that he puts them all into comas because he's that good of of a lay. Like, he's that good at laying some pipe. You're just like, this is ridiculous. And then you have like the ending where he fends off the devil single-handedly and his best minions with the cane and everything, and overpowers the devil and throws him off a building and turns him into fire. But then the end of the film is that the devil didn't get defeated at all, and now he's in this other car that looks like the car that his friends were driving around in, and Leroy and Skillet are now demons, and they're driving the car, and I'm like, so they died? It didn't show them dying at any point in the movie, so they're dead now, and they're minions of hell, and so they're there driving the car, and the devil is alive, and the wife is there. His wife is there, or his would-be wife, and she takes off her veil, and she's got all this black shit all over her face. It looks like she's like half charcoal from the barbecue pit and half human. And now it's one of those twist endings where somebody gets their comeuppance, and now he's gonna learn his lesson, and now he's gonna have to marry this this ugly bitch from hell, and he's gonna be stuck with her for all eternity. And I'm like, okay, that's another random tonal shift, but for a film that just has so many tonal shifts, it gives you multiple moments of whiplash. Not really that surprising. And in all honesty, I don't mind the ending, even though it is a tonal shift. It's fitting. Like, Petey Wheatstraw is not presented as like a good guy, even though he's really good at laying some pipe. But other than that, like, he's not presented as somebody who is necessarily the best guy. Yeah, he did grant some wishes for some people, but he's still kind of an asshole. He was not wanting to fulfill his bargain. He was trying to weasel his way out of it. So he's trying to trick the devil, and you can't trick the devil. Uh, or at least most of the time, you can't trick the devil, and it definitely didn't work out this time around. So that's that's the whole script. That's the script for Petey Wheatstraw. It's crazy. Oh, I didn't even mention the whole backstory where Petey was taken in by a random guy who lives in the neighborhood, who happens to be like part ninja, who then trains him the art of martial arts because he was tired of getting beat up by some bullies in school. Like, yeah, that's an actual subplot in the movie as well. So yeah, it's wild. It's a wild script. And I can't necessarily say that it's a good script either, but it's got so many crazy, wild, ridiculous moments in it. And there's actually some genuinely funny bits of comedy that I can't say that it's necessarily completely terrible either. But yeah, it's definitely flawed, to say the least. And the cast, I mean, it's a blaxploitation film, so you're not going to get really phenomenal, really special or solid performances. But honestly, I still didn't mind the acting because it definitely did feel like everyone involved was having fun with the film, and they had some semblance of charm. I could see why Rudy Ray Moore felt like he could be a movie star, because he does have a certain presence to him. He has a certain screen presence. He has a certain charisma, and the rest of the actors and actresses like Jimmy Lynch, who plays Jimmy, Leroy Daniels as Leroy, Ernest Mayhand as Skillet, which I think both of them are real stand-up comics, because Leroy and Skillet were actually real stand-up comedians. Ebony Wright is Nell, who also plays Petey's girlfriend, uh, Pet, and the Devil's Daughter. Wildman Steve is a guy named Steve. Tito Shaw is Lucifer, the Devil. I enjoyed his performance. It was very campy, but it's a campy film, so his campier take on the devil actually really fit quite well. Um, and you got Ted Clemens as Ted. You got Marvin Jones as Willie Scarface. George Meyerless as Mr. White. So the cast for this kind of movie, not too bad. Like I said, because you're not really going into something like this for the quality of the acting or the performances. Uh, in fact, some of the bad performances in this, some of the performances that are not necessarily the best, honestly add to the whole so bad it's good nature of the film. The film isn't impressive technically when it comes to cinematography or editing or anything like that. Although I do think that for a lower budget, I think some of the techniques they employed was actually pretty clever, pretty well executed. Like the design of hell, for instance. It's just a room. It's just a random room, but they did a good job with lighting to make it look like it's taking place or it's a part of hell. So you have this red lighting, which actually is really quite effective. And there's a few other moments where, with the use of in-camera tricks and some stuff in post production, you get some all right, okay looking effects for a relatively low budget production. The makeup effects definitely aren't great though. And the costume design for the devils and the devil and all and everything related to hell is pretty hilarious, hellaciously so. It's still something that kind of adds to the overall charm of the film. Honestly, this film almost is like a bad B movie in the universe of the Boondocks. Like it almost kind of has like a Boondocks vibe in terms of just how it plays around with conventions, how it has multiple different subplots that are going on, how it's trying to satirize the way that media portrays African Americans. So that kind of does have that sort of vibe, almost like it's something straight out of the realm of the Boondocks. Not as well written, not as well executed, and definitely not as good, but it kind of gives off a little bit of that vibe. But yeah, I really don't know what else to say about the Devil's Son-in-Law, Petey Wheatstraw, other than that it has a good soundtrack as well. There's a pretty catchy main theme that's utilized quite often uh, in the film. Petey Wheatstraw, Petey Wheatstraw, the Devil's Son-in-Law. Like it's just it's a catchy tune. It's a fun tune, and there's some other little bits music wise throughout that definitely do elevate the film a little bit. I don't know if I would say I would necessarily recommend it, but I kind of do just for a laugh. Like if you want to get a good laugh out of something that's just ridiculous and outrageous and over the top and silly and very much a product of its time, this is a good one to put on with some friends. It genuinely is. Um, but yeah, that's just my thoughts on Petey Wheatstraw. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.